Right Brain: Myths and Neurological Facts. Written by Tyler Bourdan. Narrated by Thomas Cassidy. Introduction: Being in your right brain. The word clairvoyant is derived from Latin roots through French to English and literally translates as clear sight. Most understand the word as meaning intuitive, psychic, telepathic, second-sighted, perceptive, or far-sighted. The first element of the word can also mean light, as in clair de lune, moonlight. It's a lovely word and perhaps appropriate to a discussion of the right hemisphere of the brain. Brain hemispheres are intriguing subjects for study, and they can help us to understand how different cultures functioned, how some people can experience unusual perceptions from non-ordinary sources, and how each of us can develop our clair abilities although we exist in a Western culture dominated by left brain thinking. Clairvoyance, seeing. Clairaudience, hearing. Clairsentient, sensing. Claircognition, knowing. Clairolfactory, smelling. To better understand the right hemisphere, we might start by understanding modern industrial society's obsessive dependence on left brain thinking. The left side of the brain processes information sequentially and is considered the source of analytical thought. This part of our brain recognizes parts that make up a whole and, in processing verbal information, recognizes that one stimulus comes from another, and verbal perception and generation depends on the awareness of a sequence in which sounds or stimuli occur. In other words, it looks for an anticipated organization that makes sense, in the way that we have been trained to think. A left brain dominant individual might have trouble making sense of right brain thinking. How then does right brain thinking occur? The right brain hemisphere specializes in combining the parts to produce a whole. Unlike the left, the right hemisphere organizes things simultaneously and perceives holistically. It specializes in a method of thought that recognizes and constructs patterns and is most efficient at visual and spatial processing. This is our source for processing nonverbal stimuli. Dreamers, artists, musicians, and visionaries are often right brain dominant because what left brain thinkers see as nonsense, right brain thinkers understand as an alternative way of making sense. Modern Western societies, especially since the time of Isaac Newton and René Descartes, have developed a highly analytical and mechanistic approach to understanding the world, and have sought a natural and rational explanation for existence that is highly dependent on observable and scientific phenomena that leaves little room for accepting the possibility of supernatural causality. Spirituality has a lesser status as such in left-brain dominant societies. Primitive, the term is used here to mean first, indigenous societies were far more developed in their ability to perceive with the right hemisphere of their brain, and they understood the world intuitively and held a clear sense of the unity of all things. Where Western culture identifies man as seeking dominance and as being one part of the environment in which he exists, indigenous cultures perceive all existence as a unified whole in a universe of interdependence and constancy. So, now we return to the opening paragraph of this essay and the reference to clairvoyance. We often envision a clairvoyant as a psychic or fortune teller, or one able to see what is not naturally evidenced. However, in the same way that we all possess analytical skills that differ in degree from one person to another, we all also possess the potential for clairvoyant vision and spiritual insight. As one can develop one's analytical skills through practice and mental exercise and thereby strengthen the functions of the left hemisphere of the brain, one can also cultivate the right hemisphere by deliberate attention to new realms of thought, such as visualization, shamanic journey, and deep meditation. These latter developments are more difficult than the former because we live in a society that places a higher value on left-brain thinking and fails to see the true value of the richer states of thought that create seemingly impossible accomplishments and open the society to new and better futures. One might say that the effective use of the analytical side of the brain permits us to succeed in the day-to-day life of Western society, while the right hemisphere provides the opportunity to create a new world that is limited only by our imagination and willingness to form new paradigms of existence. As quantum theory has replaced Newtonian mechanics as a new understanding of existence, and mechanistic images have been supplanted by an extraordinary unified theory of oneness, we have been placed at the threshold of a new age where conflict and a sense of helplessness are displaced by unbounding potential and cosmic harmony. To be truly participatory, we must hone our clair abilities by attending to our right brain hemisphere. The difficulty in acquiring such second clair powers is primarily a product of the indoctrination that we have allowed to dominate our culture, but the clair is accessible by everyone who chooses to remove the blinders of Western certitude and open one's mind to infinitely greater possibilities. The primary limitation of left-brain thinking is the failure to recognize that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. The mechanistic paradigm that governs left-brain thinking sees the parts of a system as independent elements and assumes that the combination of the parts produces the whole. A living system paradigm, the source imagery of right-brain thinking, understands the whole as the true nature of existence, and the disassembly of the whole into imagined components actually causes the whole to disappear. An analogy for understanding this distinction might be to mentally picture two images: a clock and a human being. Imagine taking the clock apart and arraying the parts on a table. Your mind can effectively reconstruct the clock back into its original form, and you can even understand this form from the parts that are in front of you. The cogs and wheels and dials, etc., have meaning as a clock even in their separation. Now, consider a human being and what we determine to be the essence of a human being. Now, mentally disassemble this human into its component parts: muscles, skin, organs, hair, etc., and mentally array the parts before you. We can recognize the parts, but the sum of those parts do not represent or restore that which we understand as life. Emotional states, spiritual constructs, meaning and purpose, reverie and contemplation, etc., are the core components of life, not the aforementioned pieces of the body. The left hemisphere is very competent at understanding the parts of the body and can apply mechanistic thinking to provide shelter, medical attention, and social organization for people, but the right hemisphere offers expansive possibilities for growth, change, invention, and transitions inaccessible to the left hemisphere. One might say that the left brain allows you to survive, while the right brain offers one the opportunity to thrive. We all strive to survive, but we desire to thrive. Vibrational energies that imbue our auras are present in all people, regardless of whether they are left-brained or right-brain dominant. The difference for individuals lies in their awareness of and ability to influence the higher dimensional energies. The beginning of the ascension process is to develop the right hemisphere of the brain, which will provide a portal into these dimensions, and to continue the refinement of this deeper source of thought until one can begin to alter oneself and the universe in which we live. Chapter 1: Why we need to be right-brained. Number 1. The domination of the left brain. Using both sides of the brain equally enables the person to adjust and respond well to different life situations. However, research shows that we tend to be dominated by the left side of our brain. Some studies state that we use our left brain 85% of the time because we analyze language, think of sequences, interpret information and communication, and use logic to understand new facts from our world. Our fast-moving world with too much information necessitates that we use more of our left side of the brain in order to assimilate and absorb the information. Furthermore, our educational systems promote left brain thinking, and therefore the average student becomes dominant in the left hemisphere. This will be at the expense of the right brain. Traditional learning methods put a lot of emphasis on examinations. Learning is based mainly on words, teachers' lectures, textbooks, and writing. These activities belong to the left side of the brain, and in the process make it the more dominant side. Research has shown that while one hemisphere is actively processing information, the other hemisphere tends to rest. If one side of the brain is not exercised enough, it may not develop adequately. Roger Sperry, who is one of the founders of right brain theory. The main theme to emerge is that there appear to be two modes of thinking, verbal and non-verbal, represented rather separately in left and right hemispheres respectively, and that our education system, as well as science in general, tends to neglect the non-verbal form of intellect. What it comes down to is that modern society discriminates against the right hemisphere. Tony Schwartz, in his best-selling book The Way We Are Working Isn't Working, states that the right side of our brains is underdeveloped. Number 2. The right brain and stress. The right brain has many functions, including stress modulation and stress management. Recent research shows a direct link between underdeveloped right hemisphere and a higher stress level. When we use the right brain, we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, as opposed to the adrenaline-releasing sympathetic system of the left brain. The parasympathetic system is responsible for lowering stress and feeling better. The right side has more norepinephrine, while the left side has neurotransmitter dopamine. Norepinephrine is considered as a stress hormone. The right brain is also responsible for releasing endorphins. Endorphins have many beneficial effects, mainly triggering positive feelings in the body, similar to that of morphine. In addition to decreased feelings of pain, secretion of endorphins leads to feelings of euphoria, modulation of appetite, release of sex hormones, and enhancement of the immune response. For example, the feeling that follows a good exercise is often described as euphoria. That feeling, known as a runner's high. The reason that sports and exercise are very effective in relieving stress is because that these activities are endorphins-based, and these endorphins are right brain oriented. Studies show that when you're stressed out, the brain's neural circuits are limited to the left hemisphere. As soon as you begin to activate the right hemisphere, you balance the brain, and you start to become more relaxed and more able to lower stress. If you feel under pressure, this is a signal from your brain that you have been using your left brain more than you should. Number 3. The right brain and sports performance. Experts have found that right brain activation is also important for athletic performance. The following details are based on a study in 1994 by Aerobics and Fitness Association of America. Sports experts are finding there are optimal states of mind conducive to peak sports performance. This optimum mental state is called automatic flow, according to Deborah Cruz, PhD, an assistant professor in exercise and sports science at the University of North Carolina in Greensboro. Her theory: by turning down the engine of the left brain, the analytical, decision-making zone, and revving up the right brain, the intuitive, creative, spontaneous zone, athletes can grasp new skills and concepts on a profound and potentially deeper level. In one study, Cruz asked 34 skilled golfers, 17 men and 17 women, to attempt 240 12-foot putts. Her initial prediction was right on target. The better performers showed a significant increase in right hemisphere activity immediately prior to initiating the stroke, while their left brain slumbered. The best players tuned out the analytical side of their minds by focusing solely on the target and their general feel for the shot, she says. The worst players tuned into their left hemispheres using verbal cues to guide them. Keep your body still. Keep your head straight. Number 4. Conclusion. Different studies and research prove the importance of using the right brain. PET scans and neuroscience technology show that the right brain regulates or influences many aspects of our behavior. We now know that our happiness is based significantly on using our right side of the brain. Unfortunately, in this world of the information age, we have become accustomed to using more of our left brain at the expense of our right brain. This could be one of the major causes of rising depression rate worldwide. Figures released by the World Health Organization show that depression could be the second highest fatal disease worldwide by 2020. It is interesting to realize that we were born to be right-brain thinkers. Research shows that 98% of the population are born to be right-brained. By age 7, only 10% of students are still right-brained. By the age 14 or adulthood age, only 2% of the population remains right thinkers. Other studies state that children before age 7 are the ultimate whole-brain thinkers. The trend towards left-brain thinking is not diminishing. However, we can learn tools and exercises that help us to be more balanced in our thinking. Studies have found many empirical evidences about techniques useful and helpful in directing our thinking more towards the right. Whole brain thinking. How to get your right hemisphere in the picture. The trouble with the way many of us are working today is that we are learning more and more heavily on sorting information, organizing emails, and cramming facts. And no matter how creative you were to begin with, if you focus on facts and details for long enough, your creative side will slip into lullaby land. More and more of us are losing touch with our intuitive side, our creativity, and our ability to think out of the box. The problem? Many of us are only using half of our box. Read on and find out how to nurture the right side of your brain and get back with the bigger picture. The limited majority. Research shows that around 60% of people in the developed world are dominant in left hemisphere style thinking. Thinking with the left side of your brain is excellent for fact gathering and analyzing, and for precision and analysis. It's also great for organizing information and situations, keeping records and developing plans. In short, your left brain loves order and details. But the trouble with zooming in on the details is that you can miss out on the bigger picture. That's the realm of your right brain, and it facilitates wonderful abilities such as flexibility of thinking, intuitive problem solving, creative planning, considering values, spotting new possibilities, and interacting sensitively and positively with others. The trouble with the left brain ruling the roost is that it can lead to what appears to others to be arrogant, locked down thinking and poor understanding of other people's concerns and feelings. Left brain dominance can lead to an arrogant streak or critical nature. It can cause impatience, resistance to change, and can make you socially unpopular, as left brain people have a tendency to fix on being always right and are quick to point out faults in others. Does that sound like someone you want to hang around with? Me neither. 3 fun ways to boost your brain's right hemisphere. Use your non-dominant hand. If you're right-handed, try brushing your teeth with your left hand, or spending a few minutes a day writing with your left hand. It's fascinating to see how awkward it is when you first write with your wrong hand, but after some practice you'll see that your writing will start to look like your early attempts of writing at school. If you keep practicing, it will slowly improve, and your control of the pencil and speed of writing will get better and better, and so will your access to your right hemisphere. Try some brain-boosting body moves. Certain body moves are known to balance the brain. Juggling, walking while swinging opposite arms and legs, and marching on the spot all help to get the left and right side of the brain working together. Creative planning. Doodling rather than writing word lists or linear notes is a good way to engage your right brain. You can daydream, scribble, and sketch your way through a problem-solving session and find yourself stress-free and super resourceful when you emerge from the other side. Mind mapping is another great way to work on paper with your whole brain. It's fast, fun, and encourages excellent radial thinking and recall with minimal effort. Join the whole-brained elite. By practicing whole-brain thinking, you are associated with a minority of genius thinkers. Einstein and Leonardo da Vinci are often referred to as whole-brain thinkers, and it's their natural inclination to think in an integrated manner that won them genius status. Nurture your right brain today, and let your imagination fly. Chapter 2. Have we left our right brain behind? It takes more to stand out. Today's crowded media environment with multiplied internet information places a huge challenge on communications. Customers are no longer awed by knowledge. A short Google search churns out reams of data. Many are getting information overload. In response, advertisements are increasingly using lifestyle and mood to enhance appeal and stand out from the clutter. Quality differences between products and brands are narrowing through globalization and permeation of technology. Companies are finding it more challenging to sustain competitive advantage as competitors up the ante while aggressive new players enter the playing field. Where do we go? In a situation where two competitors present equally impressive technical information, same level of service, quality, and value for money, the one who tells a better story clinches the deal. Why? One moved mind and heart, the other only the mind. Drawing from Nobel Prize-winning research on left and right brain functions and other sources, dual brain comms enables people to think and communicate out of their box to achieve breakthrough outcomes. The right brain deals with imagination, feeling, intuition, and creativity, amongst other functions. The left brain handles analysis, logic, order and sequence, and problem solving, etc. Left brain dominance, right brain opportunity. Listen and observe the way people and organizations communicate. You would notice that many are left brain dominant. Some right-brained folks serve in left-brain environments and end up conforming to the left-brain culture. Astute right-brain communications enables one to stand out in a left-brain environment. Economic theory is not always an accurate predicator of societal behavior because people do get swayed by emotions in economic decisions. Emotions are, in turn, influenced by relationships. Hence, the premium for relationship-building communications continues to rise. The same applies in marketing, HR, and PR contexts. Therefore, communications which does not effectively engage the emotions or right brain misses out on an important influencer of behavior. Ultimately, audience behavior determines the outcomes of communications. Abundant opportunities. Right brain communications has great potential for relationship building and experience enhancement. Right brain bridging has powerful applications which can help us get through roadblocks in communications and differentiate our brand in memorable, heartwarming ways to win the day. Nevertheless, our knowledge-driven economy has also raised expectations on the quantity, quality, and relevance of information. People want distilled information which captures the essence from reams of research, so the right brain still has to be satisfied. Combine right and left brain thinking, and we have the potential to become powerful and influential communicators whom people would listen to and welcome. Develop dual brain communications. Learn how to be adept in switching your brain modes and achieve more successful outcomes in communicating with target audiences. Transforming others and being transformed. Communications is not just about getting our points across. Talking, relating, interacting, discussing, influencing others, and being changed ourselves are all part of the holistic process. We need to learn to be better listeners, to be better communicators who can reach people's hearts and minds. There are ways to engage both our left and right brains, setting us on course to achieving desired outcomes, growing circles of influence, and greater satisfaction with life. The dual brain comms approach is a powerful bridging and idea/content generation tool to help professionals and leaders meet rising communication challenges in their work. Dual brain comms is one of 3 pillars in the Clarion Institute's Impact Communications program. Taken in its entirety, the Impact program is a powerful transformation tool for individuals, workforce, and organizations. It opens new avenues in customer relationship enhancement to build competitive advantage. Helping people and organizations achieve breakthrough in communications is one of Samuel's passions. He has more than 2 decades of experience working across Eastern and Western cultures, various levels of protocol in private, NGO, and government sectors and matrix organizations. Are there left and right brain exercises? How each part of the brain needs a different workout. For the most part, people are familiar with left and right brain thinking. But did you know you can stimulate the growth of each through left and right brain exercises? Understanding the basics of how each hemisphere works is key to giving each a workout. Some people may question what the point of such exercise would be, but there is good reasons behind it. Since the right brain in general is responsible for visual processing, big picture thinking, intuitive processing, and processing ideas simultaneously, doing right brain exercises would help enhance those functions. Conversely, since the left brain in general is the hemisphere that is analytical, processes step by step, verbally oriented, etc., left brain exercises would help boost those processes. So what exactly would such exercise entail? For the right half of the brain, it would involve performing tasks that stimulate visual usage, intuitive thinking, etc. Right brain exercises might be things like painting or drawing that use the right brain functions of visual processing as well as big picture or holistic processing that goes on in the right hemisphere. Right brain exercises would also include games that involve strategy or working through various tasks simultaneously. These games require that you take a look at things as a whole and at times think outside the logical deductions to achieve the goal. This would also help build up function in the right hemisphere. For the left side, you would need left brain exercises that would require word usage, logical reasoning, or step-by-step processing. Brain teasers or word puzzles would be a couple of good examples that utilize the left hemisphere and strengthen its function. Spelling and math activities are also good left brain exercises. These processes are done predominantly in the left hemisphere, so the more you use them, the more neural connections are built in that part of the brain, increasing function. Basically, any task or test that involves deductive reasoning, working through a problem in a sequential order, or working with distinct facts and figures will enhance this part of the brain and how it works. Whatever your preference, researchers have noted that the overall brain works more efficiently if we not only work the side that is dominant for us, but spend some time working the less dominant parts. In other words, right brain exercises will be beneficial to left brain individuals, and left brain exercises will help right brainers. Building up both sides actually serves to facilitate better interactions between both halves, which gives your brain a more well-rounded ability. As with physical exercise, the brain is best helped if the exercise is regular and not sporadic. The brain, like muscle, works on the use it or lose it principle. The more we are inactive with certain parts of our brains, the harder it is for us to perform those functions. The more we work them, the easier it is for us to use those functions. So, whether you need a good dose of right brain exercises or left brain, the point is to get that brain in shape. Your brain and creativity. In the 1950s and 1960s, Professor Roger Sperry was investigating brainwave function. He wanted to explore different thinking activities and their effect on the brain. Sperry got volunteers to perform different mental tasks such as mental arithmetic, reading poetry, reciting memorized lines, drawing, looking at different colors, analyzing logical problems, and daydreaming. Sperry Nobel Prize 1981 winning research found that the brain divides its activities into left brain, left cortex activities, and right brain, right cortex activities. Left brain functions: words, logic, numbers, sequence, linearity, analysis, lists. Right brain functions: rhythm, spatial awareness, dimension, imagination, daydreaming, color, holistic awareness. When the right cortex becomes active, the left cortex tends to go in a relatively restful or meditative state. Similarly, when the left cortex becomes active, right cortex becomes more calm and relaxed. You may have heard that the left brain activities were generally labeled as intellectual, academic, or business activities, and the right brain activities to be more artistic, creative, and emotional activities. If this labeling were to be true, then you would expect academics and intellectuals such as Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein to be left brain, while artists and musicians such as Beethoven and Michelangelo to be using their right brain. Right? Well, let us have a look at Einstein. Einstein was nominated the greatest genius of the 20th century. However, he was a poor student who preferred daydreaming to studying and was expelled from school. As a teenager, he became inspired by the imaginative side of mathematics and physics and was very interested in the works of Michelangelo. These interests fueled his imagination further, leading him to develop creative mind games. In one of these mind games, Einstein imagined that he was standing on the surface of the sun, where he sat on a sunbeam and travelled to the ends of the universe. When he came to the end of his journey, he found that he was back where he started. Surely this is impossible. You can't travel in a straight line forever and end up where you started. The truth then came to him. His imagination had told him more than logic ever could. From this imagination game, Einstein made one of the most profound insights in history. Our universe is a curved and finite universe. He did not come to this conclusion by only left brain thinking, but combining his knowledge of number, word, order, logic, and analysis with imagination, spatial awareness, an ability to see the whole picture. This is a perfect example of blending the right and left brain functions to form whole brain creativity. What about the right brain creative people? Beethoven is known as one of the most famous musicians. As a musician, you would expect him to be right-brained, but let's consider the nature of music. It is written on lines, in sequence, follows a logic and is based on numbers. These are all left brain functions. Music has always been described as the purest form of mathematics. It is also interesting to note that many musicians had mathematics as their major hobby, and vice versa. Like Einstein, he was neither right or left-brained, but creatively whole-brained. Creativity workout. Number 1. Make a list of all the right brain skills that you use, then make a list of all the left brain skills you use. Pay attention to any left or right skills you are neglecting and strengthen them straight away. Number 2. Take breaks. Whole brain thinking requires that you take regular breaks. This is when you come up with most of your ideas. Think about it, in the shower or on a walk, before going to sleep, listening to music. Your brain needs to relax. Number 3. Go for a long walk. This will help increase the blood flow to your brain and provide exciting stimulus for the senses. Number 4. Be creative in your everyday life. Make up 2 lists, one for activities when you are most creative and one for when you are least creative. This will help you identify where you can maximize creativity and eliminate non-creative activities. 5. Mastermind group. When faced with a problem, ask your mastermind group, real or imaginary, to help you come up with the answer. Number 6. Use both sides of your body. By using both sides of your body, you will use both sides of your brain. Use your non-dominant hand for daily activities, brushing your teeth, writing, answering the phone. Number 7. Play Einstein-like imagination games. Ask yourself an interesting question and let your imagination run riot with all the possible solutions, no matter how bizarre or crazy they are. See what you can come up with. Chapter 3. Right brain versus left brain. This theory of the structure and functions of the mind suggests that the 2 different sides of the brain control 2 different modes of thinking. It also suggests that each of us prefers one mode over the other. Experimentation has shown that the 2 different sides or hemispheres of the brain are responsible for different manners of thinking. The following information illustrates the differences between left brain and right brain thinking. Most individuals have a distinct preference for one of these styles of thinking. Some, however, are more whole-brained and equally adept at both modes. In general, schools tend to favor left-brain modes of thinking, while downplaying the right-brain ones. Left-brain scholastic subjects focus on logical thinking, analysis, and accuracy. Right-brain subjects, on the other hand, focus on aesthetics, feeling, and creativity. How right brain versus left brain thinking impacts learning. Curriculum. In order to be more whole-brained in their orientation, schools need to give equal weight to the arts, creativity, and the skills of imagination and synthesis. Instruction. To foster a more whole-brain scholastic experience, teachers should use instruction techniques that connect with both sides of the brain. They can increase their classroom's right-brain learning activities by incorporating more patterning, metaphors, analogies, role-playing visuals, and movement into their reading, calculation, and analytical activities. Assessment. For a more accurate whole-brained evaluation of student learning, educators must develop new forms of assessment that honor right-brain talents and skills. Exercises. Here are some ways to strengthen the left or right hemispheres. Left brain exercises 1. Make lists. One method of getting into details is to outline what must be done. Bite-sized chunks of daily tasks are an excellent way to engage the left hemisphere and also to overcome apparently impossible hurdles. Number 2. Pay attention to details. The left hemisphere is about details and linear thinking. Notice the details in the surrounding environment and connect to what is happening through the power of observation. Number 3. Change your immediate environment. Changing surroundings is an opportunity to change thinking because the mind will not have its familiar environment to cue it into old habits. Create an environment that has beautiful, calming, and enjoyable details. Right brain exercises. 1. Keep the bigger picture in mind. Take time to become aware of the greater scheme of life and larger recurring patterns. Number 2. Creative visualization. Learn to quit the chatter in the mind and to allow the spatial, holistic, and much more unconscious right brain do its work. Meditation and contemplative practices are useful techniques to quit the left brain. Number 3. Practice spatial rotation exercises. The right brain is involved in spatial tasks as well as holistic vision. Imagine objects rotating in space. Keep a clear image of the object while it is moving. Number 4. Learn to trust intuitive information. Allow the right brain the opportunity to function by reflecting on unique and creative thoughts. Honor the insights received through daydreams, visions, and imaginings. Relax and enjoy their creative possibilities. Chapter 4. Restraining right brain thinkers. Is it possible that students are still suffering confinement from their natural individualities? However, instead of their left hands being restrained, this time, is it their right brains? Our left brain deals with logic, rational thinking, math, language, analysis, and so on. Our right brain deals with inspiration, exploration, colors, feelings, and the much maligned daydreaming. The majority of subjects studied in our schools require left brain thinking. Kids whose processing relies more upon their right side of the brain tend to be viewed as unorganized and easily distracted. What may seem unorganized, writes Phil O'Hagan, a teacher and self-proclaimed right brain thinker, is merely the brain tapping into learning through visual cues, preferring to get all of the information at once. We're not big on observation because right-brainers are subjective, not objective. In the past, kids who relied more on right-brain thinking were seen as disobedient, earning either a dunce cap or a paddling. More recently, easily distracted and unfocused kids are diagnosed. We've progressed from paddles to plans. In a school system that favors the left brain attributes, many right brain thinkers find themselves with IEPs, 504s, and behavior charts. And of course, let's not forget medication. Not to say all kids on plans or medication are merely misunderstood right brain thinkers. Many children have discovered a potential they may not have otherwise, thanks to properly prescribed medications and IEPs. However, one need only look at recent news about our schools, principals keeping low-achieving kids home on test days, doctors prescribing attention meds to kids who do not have ADD, the success of Race to Nowhere, and the increase in kids taking Adderall, to see that there is a significant disconnect between the expectations of many educators and parents and the realities of who today's children are and what they are telling us. To a teenager, it's become obvious that the traits of our school system found to be of concern when he was young, distractibility, daydreaming, difficulty focusing on tedious tasks, are the very traits that are helping him master his creative pursuits. While he did need to learn and fortunately did get help with analytical and mathematical challenges, it was only the astute, wise, and unfortunately rare teacher who found time to stray from the imposed curriculum to celebrate what he was able to do with the other side of his brain. Hence, school was rarely a source of fulfillment in his world. Creativity is most certainly not limited to our right brains. Terrific leaps of creativity have been made in every field from math to poetry by people using their left brain capabilities. The problem is when this way of coming up with ideas and solutions is given priority within a setting that our kids spend the majority of their day. Would it be so difficult for educators to recognize the equal value between focus and attention, as well as chaos and intuition? Sometimes it's not until one relaxes and indulges in distractions that one discovers answers to important questions. Consider the following. Stimulants such as Adderall, Ritalin, and caffeine, taken by many to increase attention, can make creative epiphanies less likely. You might be able to work for 8 hours straight, but you're probably not going to have many big insights, notes neuroscientist Martha Farah. Why is it that in the last decade, creative innovations have boomed in domains such as medicine, technology, the culinary arts, and businesses like Google, yet our education system is moving at a relative snail's pace? Although innovative learning techniques such as mindfulness and breath awareness are being brought into some classrooms in an effort to put kids in touch with the workings of their brain, we clearly have a ways to go. Sustained focus is helpful in what is regularly an overstimulating world. Nevertheless, there are unquestionable benefits to daydreaming and distractibility. Children are evolving. Now it's the school's turn. Maybe the desire and need for performance-enhancing drugs would dissipate if educational institutions placed more value on and incorporated into their curriculum right brain activities, such as outdoor exploration, daydreaming, aka mindfulness and meditation, inventive cooking, and the arts. Let's untie those right brains and let them soar. Why should so many children have to wait till college to feel successful and smart? For children lacking an adult that recognizes their creative potential, this opportunity may never come without access to it in the school environment. Using both sides of your brain. During the evolution of the cortex part of the brain has decided to divide its workload between the left and right side. The Nobel Prize was awarded to two scientists, Dr. Roger Sperry and Dr. Robert Ornstein, for their research in the division of labor between the two sides of the brain. Through their research, we now understand that each side of the brain, or cortex, is assigned specific tasks. The left side of the brain is responsible for linear thinking, logical reasoning and analysis, numbers and mathematical ability, rational and empirical thought, language and verbal skills, while the right side of the brain is responsible for random, unordered thinking, artistic senses, color, spatial perception and pattern, creativity and intuition, musical appreciation and rhythmic ability, imagination and daydreaming. What does this have to do with being left or right-handed? This may have a big effect on our handedness, but let's first look at how the information is processed on either sides of our brain. The right brain is visual and processes information in an intuitive and simultaneous way. It looks at the whole picture first, and then the details. The left side of the brain is verbal and processes information on an analytical and sequential way. It looks first at the pieces and then puts them together to get the whole picture. The left and right side of the brain are normally referred to as hemispheres, and for some reason our right and left hemispheres control opposite sides of the body. This means that your left hemisphere controls your right side of your body, and vice versa for your right hemisphere. This doesn't necessarily mean that being left-handed means that the right side of your brain dominates and that you are more artistic, creative, and intuitive. However, significant numbers of artists are left-handed, which would suggest more of right hemisphere dominance. So, there can be a relationship between your handedness and the side of your brain you use the most. How does being left or right-handed affect my studying? The effect that this has on studying is that the traditional academic instructions are geared toward left brain activities, right-handedness. Academic institutions grade students on their left brain abilities. These would be abilities such as mathematics, numbers and mathematical ability, English, language and verbal skills, geometry, and algebra, logical thinking, reasoning, and analysis. The list can go on. This does not mean that if you are right-brained or left-handed, you are disadvantaged. It only means that now that you are aware of how your brain processes information, you can alter your learning to be able to learn more effectively. Connecting brain dominance and learning capabilities. The concept of brain dominance in individuals is not new. However, the correlation between learning capability and brain dominance is on the rise. The question remains, what happens when the environment and teaching style children are being asked to participate in doesn't match their dominant learning style? Individuals use both the left and right hemisphere throughout their daily activities and routines. Interestingly enough, test results show there is generally a dominant side of the brain that is activated more often than the other. The hand you write with is no longer an exclusive indicator of which side of the brain you use the most. Instead, your actions and perceptions of situations tend to define which side of the brain you use more often. Left-side dominant individuals tend to excel in areas such as mathematics and language skills. These individuals are very comfortable with concrete concepts and logical thinking. They often notice differences between objects, rules, agendas, and structured environments where cause and effect are evident and mandatory for strong left-sided thinkers. Right-side dominant individuals tend to thrive in the hands-on experiences. Their analytical and artistic skills are used to assist them in learning. Right-brained individuals often see similarities and patterns. They tend to think in pictures and use their gut instincts to make decisions or guide them during testing. Right-brained individuals see connections between events versus recalling rote facts and figures. Although it is interesting to be able to identify which side of your brain is dominant, is it really that important? For individuals struggling with learning, the answer is yes! When researcher Roger Sperry published his works in the late 1960s, he not only identified the differences between the two hemispheres of our brain, he also indicated the communication between the two is essential for maximizing memory retention and learning. Learning can take place no matter which side of the brain is dominant. However, if information is presented to the learner in a format consistent with their dominant learning style, the information is stored more efficiently for memory retrieval because the neurological connections on their dominant side of the brain are vast. Furthermore, when the information is able to be passed from one side of the brain to the other, there become two homes for the information to be retrieved from. When information is stored on each side of the brain, memory recall is much faster and consistent. Research tends to show most Americans are left brain dominant. Many schools and professions institute rules and regulations that are geared towards left brain individuals. Learning is expected to take place through repeated repetitions and memorization. Often, information is presented by somebody reading, either to themselves or aloud, and the learning is measured by the student's ability to recall that information accurately. Spelling words and multiplication tables are memorized, science and history information is recited, and testing is often multiple choice. While these methods have proved to work for most, they do not apply to all. Many teachers have begun to use more right-brain learning techniques in their classrooms. They have created opportunities to allow more hands-on learning. They are now presenting information through a variety of methods that can appeal to both right and left-brained individuals. However, with recent cutbacks in our school systems and the newly mandated concept of no child left behind, teachers are faced with a growing challenge of reaching a classroom full of students, all with a wide variety of learning styles. While the learning environments appear to be adapting to the concept of dominant learning styles as best they can, very few standardized tests are bending to conform. While parents and teachers are attempting to get the information in as efficiently as possible, the tests that count still follow most left-brain methods. However, there are alternative techniques to assist with information recall and memorization. One of the means of increasing learning capability is to reinforce the opportunity for information to pass between the two hemispheres more easily, resulting in increased memory retention and recall capabilities. The integration of the left and right side of the brain has a very powerful impact on the brain's ability to process information, making learning happen easier and faster. As a pediatric occupational therapist specializing in sensory, visual, and auditory processing, I have witnessed tremendous advancement in children once labeled with a learning disability simply by identifying brain dominance and providing them with programs and activities designed to increase the connections between right and left brain functions. Learning difficulties can be helped, not necessarily by giving the individual compensatory strategies, but by improving the whole learning process. When you are able to use your brain for efficiency, frustration and anxiety over learning decreases, and learning becomes interesting and fun. Chapter 5: The Creative Gap. Bridging the Brain Gap. Do you eagerly follow the next shiny object, bouncing from one intriguing idea to the next, often without concrete results? You might have a right brain orientation. Do you feel stuck in a routine way of doing things that no longer serves you? Find yourself yearning for a productive change and have no idea how to get there? You might have a left brain orientation. We are continuing to explore the idea that without challenges, it is possible very few of our dreams would actually come true. Understanding this requires developing an ability to bridge this brain gap. When right brain and left brain skills, creativity, and structure are applied in the right order and at the right time, we have intentional success. And when we do that, we are not only bridging the brain gap effectively, we are utilizing challenge as an essential and creative force in that process. The unique tool that can help us with this is called the creative gap, and it's pretty easy to use. Start by using your imagination, or right brain, to drop a pebble into still water, and visualize 4 rings rippling outward from that spot. We'll be drawing on those rings to represent different phases or circles of the creative gap. We begin in the center, where the pebble dropped. This is the circle of intention. Intention is what you want or desire. Arises from inspiration, right brain, and is your inspiration made concrete, left brain. Is alive inside of you, in your imagination. You can see it, feel it, hear it. And so we begin with intention. Intention at once defines your vision and your current reality in relationship to that vision. What you want is not yet in your outer world, and it is already very alive in your imagination. It is from this point that we always begin the creative journey. In your imagination, shift your attention to the outermost circle caused by the ripples. This is the circle of vision. Here, you simply recognize that this circle represents the vision of where you want to be. Your desire made real in the world. Left brain. It is the space between your intention and your vision that establishes the creative gap. Now, we begin to bridge it. In your imagination, bring your focus back to the ripple closest to intention. This is what we call the circle of possibilities, and it is very right brain. It is idea land, play space, imagination. This is the circle in which we really engage creative energy. In this circle, you explore all the various options for making your vision real. It's fun. Right-brainers could live there forever, and staying in this circle means our ideas remain forever ideas. When you have explored the circle of possibilities, it becomes time to move to the circle of planning, or left brain. This is the section of the creative gap where you analyze your ideas, weigh the pros and cons, organize, and begin to make choices about which ideas will best support creating success. Left-brainers love this place in the creative gap. And to be successful, you can't stay there either. You must continue to move. As you make choices and begin to take action on them, you emerge from the circle of planning. This is the point where you typically encounter obstacles, so we call this the circle of challenge. If one is going to fail, this is the place where it usually happens, and why approaching our challenges from a creative perspective becomes so important. In the circle of challenge, we come face to face with the question, will this challenge stop me, or will it become a stepping stone for my growth and ultimate success? Presuming that your answer to that question is the latter, the challenge becomes the point of change, where you explore solutions to dissolve the challenge. It is the point at which your vision starts to manifest. Once you have moved with the challenge and transformed it into a creative force, emerging from the creative gap becomes easy. Because here, right brain and left brain come together dynamically, producing inspired actions. Take the next steps, those inspired actions, and now you have fully bridged the creative gap. Your dream is becoming real in the world. Perhaps because of challenge. The secret to unleashing your child's potential. Harnessing the powers of the right brain. This is a popular song that mummies sing to their little girls. The song goes, when I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Here's what she said to me. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. What will be, will be. While parents are not able to predict the future of our children, Parents certainly play a pivotal role in harnessing our children's potential from an early age. You might have heard advice from your friends on starting children early, typically at preschool age of 3 to 6 years. The question often centers on which preschool to choose. Those that focus on learning through play, those that run academic boot camps, those that let children choose their own curriculum, to even those that focus on building self-esteem. The critical first 3 years. However, if you wait till preschool age, that is probably too late. Research has long shown that early life experiences have a significant effect on whole brain development. In particular, developmental neurobiology has found that the critical period for learning is in the first 3 years of life. This is the time when the brain shows the most neural plasticity. What Professor Makoto Shikida, a leading expert in early learning, espoused appeals to the cognitivist in us. The purpose of education is not to cram students with knowledge, but to empower a child to tap into the innate mental powers, e.g., photographic memory, perfect pitch, rapid calculation ability, speed processing, etc., that are already present in his brain. Specifically, his right genius brain. Why are the first 3 years so critical? The secret is in the way the brain develops. When your child is a baby or toddler, he will use the right side of his brain far more than the left. However, between 3 to 6 years, there is a gradual transition from right brain dominance to left brain dominance. By the time he is 6 years old, the transformation to left brain dominance is complete. This leaves us with the critical window of birth to 3 years. Only 3 precious years to unleash the genius brain. The rationale is that by stimulating the right brain before it gets overwhelmed by the left, the whole brain can be harnessed to its fullest potential. Left hemisphere. The left brain is known for its mathematical and language abilities, analytical thought, logical thinking, sequencing, categorizing, planning, speech, and spelling are linked to left brain functioning. In our schools today, more emphasis is given to left brain activities like mathematics and spelling, as compared to right brain activities like creativity and music. This explains why school-going children tend to have more highly developed left brains than right brains. Right hemisphere. The right hemisphere is responsible for emotions, creativity, music, and rhythm. Experts have also accrued the softer aspects of personality and behavior to the right brain. The right hemisphere, often known as the image brain, works through visual stimulation. It can enable a child to learn subconsciously and process large amounts of information at high speed. Explaining. The processor is the brain of the smartphone. Using this analogy, when you harness the powers of the right brain, you are not merely loading new data, but actually increasing processor speed from single core to dual core, or even quad core. The right brain soaks up information like a sponge and is capable of processing data all at once. So much of formal education nowadays focuses on inputting information. All the more we need to grow our children's brain processors and their inherent capacities in order to match the exponential demands of the 21st century. Stimulating the right brain. Some of you may be aware of the many merits of the right brain, but what most people do not know is how the right brain gets stimulated. It is best activated by visual images, high speeds, and a stress-free mood. What does this mean for educators and parents? The answer is simple. We adapt our teaching processes to help our children get in touch with their genius brain. It means that in the early years we should be harnessing right brain strategies to teach, even on subjects that are typically accessed by the left brain, such as languages and mathematics. A right brain strategy. The flashcard method. There are many activities that can help to develop children's right brains. One of the more common methods is using flashcards. The method of teaching babies with flashcards was pioneered by Glenn Doman, a child brain development specialist and founder of the Institutes for the Achievement of Human Potential. It involves either physical or digital flashcards which you show rapidly to your child. Flashing cards at a speed of less than 1 second per card is an effective method of teaching babies for the simple fact that information presented at high speed is more easily apprehended by the right brain. Learning in this way occurs unconsciously and effortlessly. Chapter 6. Conclusion. The other dimensions, seeing or experiencing spirits, the feelings of oneness and non-separation, are all experiences of the right brain. Every small ripple of change from our personal efforts ripples out into a cataclysmic alteration of the cosmos, because we are at one with the universe. If we create again a right brain dominant culture, our possibilities are infinite. Identifying brain dominance can be the key to unlocking learning capabilities and memory retention. There is hope for struggling learners. By identifying learning styles and integrating both hemispheres of the brain more efficiently, learning capabilities are endless. Exercises for becoming more whole-brained. People used to say if you were logical, you were definitely left-brained, and if you were creative, you were definitely right-brained. This is no longer the case. New research indicates that there's more flexibility in our brains, and we can train our brains to become more organized, creative, or better able to process all sorts of information. Knowing where our strengths and weaknesses are can help us strengthen the weaker hemisphere. Thanks again for buying my book. If you have a minute, please leave a review. I take reviews seriously and always look at them. This way, you are helping me provide you better content that you will love in the future. A review doesn't have to be long, just 1 or 2 sentences and a number of stars you find appropriate. Hopefully 5, of course. Also, if I think your review is useful, I will mark it as helpful. This will help you become more known on Amazon as a decent reviewer, and will ensure that more authors will contact you with free ebooks in the future. This is how we can help each other. Take a look at these other books too. Bipolar disorder, borderline disorder, and schizophrenia. This has been Right Brain, Myths and Neurological Facts. Written by Tyler Bourdain, narrated by Thomas Cassidy. Copyright 2018 by Vincent Newt. Production copyright by Vincent Newt.